All right, let's talk about a couple guys that you don't believe are legit. Who is not legit that you're avoiding in fantasy drafts this year?
So we mentioned it earlier, being a little wary of CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans. And I love CJ Stroud as a player. I think they're going to be a good team, but I am not in on CJ Stroud being legit for this fantasy season, especially where he is going in drafts right now. If you look at some quarterbacks from last year, I'm going to list three guys. All of them made the playoffs last year in their first full season as an NFL starter. QB1 had 26 total touchdowns and finishes the QB9. QB2 had 33 total touchdowns, finishes the QB6. And QB3 had 36 total touchdowns and finishes the QB5. But if you look at those names, the first guy I mentioned is going the highest in drafts right now, despite having the worst season last year. And that's CJ Stroud. The other two guys are Jordan Love and Brock Purdy, who had incredible fantasy seasons. CJ Stroud is going as the QB5, while Purdy and Love are both going as the QB11 and QB8s in drafts. And I don't think CJ Stroud can pay off on that QB5 range where he's being drafted. I get the addition of Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs, but in order for a QB to really be worth, a top 5 QB draft pick, they have to provide the spike weeks where they're winning you a week and providing so much value over picking up a guy who's, on the waiver wire or a later round guy. And Stroud just didn't do that last year. He finished as a top 5, weekly QB only twice. Guys like Derek Carr and Geno Smith also finished with the same amount of top 5 weeks. And guys like Anthony Richardson, who only played in 4 games last year, which shows you the upside that having a running quarterback can bring you. I mean, if you want a pocket passer QB to finish as a top 5 QB, it's really got to be like either Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow, where they're throwing for, 35 plus touchdowns. Like I mentioned before, Jordan Love had 36 touchdowns and, finished as the QB5. So you got to be thinking CJ Stroud's at least got to hit that. He's got to have at least a 10 touchdown increase this year. Is he able to do that with the Texans now facing one of the hardest schedules in the NFL when they faced one of the easiest last year? I don't know. I think he's going to be good, but I just don't see him being worth, a 5th round, 4th round draft pick in fantasy drafts.
I agree. And I love Stroud, big fan, but I just look at so far doing mock drafts. It's amazing the caliber of quarterback you can get late. You mentioned Jordan Love. You mentioned Brock Purdy. Those guys are going late and they're so valuable, especially in the offenses and the weapons that they have. You can wait on those guys and then, throw in Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Those guys are going late. And even Dak Prescott, a lot of questions around him, but we know how good he is when healthy with CeeDee Lamb, if they can get that contract situated. I think you can get Dak at a discount this year too. So you don't have to reach and spend a top pick to get Stroud. I'm with you. I think you'll be disappointed based on when you take him and who you left on the board at other positions that you could have loaded up on, getting that extra receiver, that top running back type of thing. So, yeah, that's good stuff. All right, give me a tight end, because I find who you put on this list, I'm intrigued by. Who is not legit? What tight end is not legit?
So again, it hurts me to say this because I think he's an absolutely fantastic player and is going to have a great career. But Brock Bowers is not legit for this upcoming fantasy season. Rookie tight ends typically don't fare very well for fantasy. Now, last year was an exception. We saw Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid both have great rookie seasons. However, the situations they stepped into were a lot different. They were one of the top 3 targets on a great offense with a great QB. Bowers is not as lucky as they are going to, the Las Vegas Raiders. They do not project to have a top offense with either Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew at QB, and he will have to compete with Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers for targets. Now, that wasn't an issue for guys like Kincaid and Laporta last year, having to compete with Amon-Ra St. Brown and Stephon Diggs, but they were getting a slice of a much larger pie than, what Brock Bowers is going to be working with. Brock Bowers is working with a little personal pan pizza here, and he's getting the third crack at it after Devontae Adams. He's not getting an extra large pie here. And you look at other guys who are, great tight ends who had great careers like TJ Hawkinson and Eric Ebron, both top 10 picks, good careers, but they finished as the tight end 33 and 31 in their rookie seasons. Even Kyle Pitts, the highest drafted tight end ever, and he had 1,000 yards his rookie season, only finished as the tight end 10. Right now, Bowers is being drafted as the tight end 10. If I had to bet that he finishes on one side of that, I don't think he finishes lower than tight end 10. I think he ends up disappointing on that ADP. And, he may be solid, but I think there's other guys going much later who are going to provide similar value to him. Because even if he does have a great season like Pitts did, he just doesn't have top 6 upside for me.
Man, I'm in agreement once again. I'm with you. I'm intrigued by him because of the talent. And if he happened to slip, there is a spot where, yes, I would take him for sure. But when you expect him to be a come in and be Sam Laporta, I think it's unrealistic. I agree with that. And the Raiders, for the most part, are pretty avoidable. I like the value of Zamir White. I'm going to be keeping him in a couple of leagues because I got him for cheap last year. And so I like, he'll have volume, he'll have opportunity. He's probably not going to be a top 5, but he'll be a solid RB2 or RB3 this year. And then I like Jacoby Myers because he was good last year. And again, you can kind of get him late, but I'm not willing to pay for Adams. I love Gardner Minshew, but it's the ceiling. There's definitely a ceiling there. And then to your point, that affects Bowers. So Brock Bowers, what a name. He's a stud. So he's one of those guys. Yeah. If you're playing Dynasty, yeah, you want him.
Yeah, definitely in Dynasty or even as a tight end too. If you want to take him as a second tight end, maybe a breakout because you took a guy like Evan Ingram early on or something like that. But I think it would be a mistake because he's being drafted as a tight end 1 to have him be your starting tight end week 1 of the fantasy season. I do not think you're going to be happy with that.